Before we start the show, let's hear from one of our sponsors. Their support keeps this show free for you. Does connected parenting feel confusing? What do I do in this situation? How do I handle that issue? Let me help you make more sense of it all in my 30-day challenge. We meet for 4 weeks of group coaching, and you get access to all of the Peace in Parenting online materials, my entire Connected Parent Mastermind. Plus, we give you access to our school community. I help you get more connected and jumpstart your parenting in this 30-day challenge. So go to the show notes and sign up, and I'll see you there. Hi, I'm Michelle, a mother of 2 teens. 13 years ago, I traded in punishments and rewards for connection. Now I prioritize relationship over behaviors, utilize play as a parenting tool, and set limits with empathy instead of consequences. Each week, I share my journey and interview clients, experts, and followers. Thanks for joining me on the Peace in Parenting podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Hi, welcome to the Peace in Parenting podcast. I'm Michelle, and I have a lovely guest, Kate Kripke, who is we're going to talk about motherhood in maybe some ways we haven't really analyzed motherhood, but we'll get into it in a minute. Kate, will you please introduce yourself and tell our audience who you are and what you're all about?
Yep. Thanks, Michelle. So happy to be here. I am a licensed clinical social worker by training, perinatal mental health counselor by training. I am moving out of 20 years of doing more clinical maternal child mental health work and doing more advocacy and teaching and mentoring. And my greatest love is in helping those of us who are moms really understand the neuroscience behind attachment and the really phenomenal impact that our own sense of self and the way we move through the world directly impacts our kids and our relationship with our kids. I've got 2 teenage daughters, 16 and 18. And I will just say, as I'm sure we'll get into today, I'm sort of it's that funny blend of using my intellectual brain that really wants to know how things work. Mm-hmm. And also my heart center that's like just wanting to be present and parent and move through my own work in a state of wonder. And I love getting curious about that within myself. And so that's me.
Great. Amazing. So where should we start? Should we start with the science behind it all?
Yeah, let's start with the science behind it all. Because I think many of your listeners, to my understanding, are sort of high achieving, high performing women who want to do a lot of important things in the world. And I think one of the things that we don't always realize when we enter motherhood, certainly was the case for me, is that brain that's required to reach goals and achieve great things is not the same brain that's going to lead us to the experience of mothering that we're wanting most, which is one of true deep connection.
Yeah.
And there's truly brain science behind that.
Yeah. I think I never really thought about that idea, but I think for me too, I'm just personally, I like to achieve, right? I want to get things done. And I was a teacher and I ran my classroom like that. Like we were very organized. We're going to get things done. We have, a schedule. And I tried to run my home like that and nobody liked it.
Nobody liked it. And the thing is that it might work everyone, it's like we look for that moment in time where everything is organized and working the way we want it to, where we feel like we have control. And we may have glimmers of that. It doesn't last.
No. And I think you're very right. The control piece became predominant for me personally. And I know a lot of my my followers talked to me about this piece that we really wanted to have ultimate control over our kids and being organized and being productive and having a schedule and being on this train was a way to maintain control.
That's right. And the neuroscience is that we need, it's a literal need to feel in control, to believe that we have control in order to feel safe. Mm-hmm. So if we are having an experience of not having control, right? The annoying word is agency, not having choice and control, which by the way, like feels like it goes out the freaking window when we
Yeah.
if we're moving through the world feeling like we have no control, we will be in a sympathetic nervous system state.
Yeah.
And then what happens for most of us is our brain kicks in and says, okay, now I have to control so I don't feel so scared.
Yeah. I think that became a really big growth spot for me too, that to realize like I only have control over myself. And that was the ultimate control that I needed to feed my brain with in order to feel stable.
Yeah. And you know what I find really interesting, Michelle, is when we step back a little bit and ask ourselves, what's the difference between control and influence? And I know you talk a lot about this in your work.
Mhm.
The influence we want, but they're two different things. Control.
Yeah, they totally are. And I feel like influence is far more helpful than control and feels far better and also gives our kids agency, right?
That's right.
Where we all want that.
That's right.
But it's the slow boat, right? It's not the instantaneous like response that you're looking for that traditional parenting says that you should get.
That's right. I mean, you think about that. All the shoulds, you know, and all us high achievers, we confuse the shoulds and what things look like on paper from the wants and needs and the feeling behind it. And, you know, having a clean house, having well-mannered children, having kids who do well in school, having kids who have quote unquote good friends, having, you know, all the things we picture in our head. And then we say, what do I have to do to be able to parent my child or get my kid to do the things that are required to access all that? We actually get out of, we're using the part of our brain when we try to do that that's helped us be successful in our careers, or not the part of our brain that helps us settle into the moment. And I think that's where the neuroscience is so interesting, is that if we are coming into motherhood with a lot of hardwiring around doing the right thing, being the good girl, right kind of life and family, we're a part of our brain that doesn't lead us to what we want most, is that feeling of connection, that feeling of positive influence.
I really think, not that we need to lay blame, but I do think part of the problem in all of this is the societal idea that we have to control our kids. And I mean, I'm just going to say it, but it goes back to the patriarchy, right? Where everyone needs to be controlled and everyone has to be in line and have manners, like you said, and be productive and follow, you know, that's where schools came from. Schools were created, you know, to produce factory workers that could line up, that could, you know, respond to bells, that could sit down and study for hours on end and do work for hours on end. And I think that we really need to pull away from those antiquated ideologies.
Isn't it so interesting? I mean, I just thought of this as you were talking. It's so interesting to think about what's still required of us. And I guess I'll put quotes around that word just because I don't really know what everyone's career or work situation is, but what's required of us to continue to achieve amazing things out in the world of work.
Mm-hmm.
So often we're still trained and taught that patriarchal version of success, right? Control and organization and doing and having the right answer and controlling and all those things. And then of course, you know, shift that over to parenthood, which again, it's like this different way of interacting with our kids that requires not controlling, but really being steady on the inside.
Yeah.
So that we can show up from a heart space.
Yeah.
Which actually gives, to your point, our kids so much more agency. And when they feel agency, they're in a more mentally well place. And then they're more likely to make those decisions that we kind of hope they would make. But the conflict, this sort of what part of the brain, you know, we're still being told that we have to use this more dominant version of our brain over here, and we bring it into motherhood, and that doesn't work. And it's just sort of a little bit of a cluster, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And I wonder if too, like I know that I teach people to become parent coaches
Yeah.
in my certification program. And I had one of the participants say to me the other day, and I was like, wow, I don't know if this is a compliment or not, but she said, I love it that when you make a mistake in your, parenting or as a coach now or helping us, or there isn't a, you can't get the paperwork, you got to get it from somebody else, or you've made a spelling error somewhere or online, you have made a mistake. You don't really make a fuss about it and you don't care about it. And I think there's a way to take this heart-centered ideology into work, right? To run our businesses. And like I have a mostly female run business, and to just take that into our work and have that be the new norm and not have to really lay into this idea of control and dominance and overproductivity. I think there's a way just to like let that go.
Yeah, I mean, what I hear you saying is really the pathway to feeling in control, which is a different experience than being in control or doing the controlling, right? It's that feeling of steadiness on our own 2 feet, even when we or make a mistake. And that can be looked at in our professional, like we all, I mean, I'm sure, I don't know you well, Michelle, but I get this sense that like integrity and, doing things intentionally are really important to you in your business life. And of course, we want to be bringing that into our mothering as well.
Yeah.
And we have to land somewhere different within
Yeah.
ourselves to access that on both places.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that becomes this really beautiful place of growth when we can let go, like you said, let go of the control really and just lean into agency and hope for influence. And that's for some people, for me, that was mind blowing because I was so wired the other way. I grew up the other way. I performed the other way most of my life. And so when I found that out, I was like, wait, hold on. Everybody needs to know that you don't have to have control.
Same.
We're taking a break to hear from our sponsor so I can bring this podcast to you free of charge. My sweet Esme has eczema and super sensitive skin, and it's not easy finding products that actually work for tough stains, but are also not irritating to the skin. That's why I switched to Blueland. Their products are made to meet the highest environmental standards. Their products are not just clean, they're mom clean. Blueland products are 100% plastic-free and made with certified clean ingredients that are safe to use around family, pets, and plants in the house. You don't have to choose between the safe option and what really gets your house clean. Blueland products are independently tested to perform alongside major brands and are free from dyes, bleach, and harsh chemicals. And Blueland is trusted in over 1 million homes, including mine. I love the dishwasher tablets. They leave my dishes really clean, and I don't even need to use rinse aid. Blueland has a special offer for listeners. Right now, get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/peace. You won't want to miss this. blueland.com/peace for 15% off. That's blueland.com/peace. Are you a mom who feels like you're juggling it all, but something just feels off? It could also be your hormones causing this chaos. Hormone Harmony contains science-backed herbal extracts called adaptogens. Now, here's the beauty of adaptogens. They help the body adapt to any stressors like chaotic hormonal changes that happen naturally throughout a woman's life. That's why Hormone Harmony is perfect for women of all ages who are struggling with life-disrupting symptoms such as PMS, like irritability, moodiness, discomfort, or uncontrollable cravings, and menopause with symptoms like hot flashes and night sweats. The results are impressive. There are over 40,000 reviews on their website. Women cannot stop talking about it on social media. A bottle of Hormone Harmony is sold every 24 seconds. So for a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use the code PEACE. Check out happymammoth.com. Use the code PEACE for 15% off today. Okay, let's get back to the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to have control over the things that you can't control. And I think that's what you said earlier, right? We actually can get to that place where we feel in control.
Yeah.
It has to do with how are we tending to ourselves?
That's right.
What does that look like? And when we show up at work with our colleagues or our clients or whoever, and when we show up at home with our children or our partners or whoever, from that place, we have more of a positive influence.
Yeah.
I said something to you before we were recording in another conversation, and I think maybe it's worth just bringing it to the table here because I'm not, we all understand this the way that it feels important to explain. I do know after, the clinical work that I did for years and mothering my own kids and Lord, my own journey of this, because just like you, Michelle, it's like, oh gosh, I feel better in my body when I'm not trying to control everything. So I want to keep practicing this.
Yeah.
But it's this reality that, maternal and child mental health are so deeply interconnected. And look at what leads, and we're in a crisis right now, maternal mental health crisis, child mental health crisis. Look at what really is the source of a lot of this. And I don't mean to discredit biochemistry or missed, systems that aren't working. But when we really go into the source, it's often how we're talking to ourselves. Like, what is the belief I have about myself that leading me towards a sense of freedom and growth and opportunity, or creating fear and tension? And what I said to you on the call was, I think essentially what I was saying is, Kate Kripke, how I feel about myself is how I will feel about my children on some level, whether I'm or not. And I have 2 daughters, and how how I feel about my children, my daughters, is how they will feel about themselves.
Yeah, totally.
To me, a hard stop at, oh crap, I got to do some work in here. Because I do not want my daughters to feel the way I felt when I entered.
No. And that brings me back to this woman who was talking to me in the certification, and she was so flabbergasted that I wasn't, balled over by my own mistakes. And I think we have so been chastised for our mistakes growing up, right? I was, for sure. And then, that's why I teach a punishment-free ideology, is because that really lends it. If you are punishing yourself from your mistakes, like this woman obviously does, and I totally have in the past, you are going to want to punish your children for their mistakes. You're going to think of them as wrong, right? And that they need to be taught a lesson. And I think that's part of what's going on for mothers, is they feel bad when they make a mistake and they can't let it go for themselves because they've grown up in a world that chastised them so deeply.
They feel bad when they make a mistake, and then they fear their children making mistakes because they don't want their children to feel the way they feel. So then the fear becomes not just about me making a mistake, but about my child making a mistake.
Right.
So I then micromanage, or I control. Exactly. Because I don't want my child to make a mistake and feel shame of making a mistake. But that is not about my child. That is all about me.
And also, if you're giving this place of mistake-free guilt and shame, if you have this home that there's no shame around mistakes and there's no guilt and there's no anything around mistakes, you've just remedied it. You don't even need to do anything else, really. But it took me a long time to get there. I still go to a place of shaming myself in my worst moments of really making bad mistakes. I go to a place of shame because I grew up like that.
Well, you grew up like that. And again, as you said earlier, whether you are a part of your community here of podcast listeners and followers or not, society has a lot of shoulds around what it means to be a quote unquote good mother or good parent. And if we're looking at a place of, I mean, I don't know about you, Michelle, I think probably I've never met a woman that doesn't want to be a quote unquote good mom. But the moment we have that term, I want to be a good mom, is the moment we're fearing being a bad mom, which then has us all caught in a cycle again, right?
Yep.
First mom, want to make a mistake. And so it's the whole structure around mothering and parenting in general is set in this faulty matrix of
Yeah.
right, wrong, good, bad.
Yeah.
Point, which is about connection.
I know. And then our sweet parents go to this place of like trying to make sure their kids don't make mistakes because they feel like you said, they don't want them to feel this, shame and guilt or whatever it is. But in fact, it's so good.
It's so good.
It's so good to just have that internal shame and guilt and not have the external where everyone's, chastising you. But if you just have that internal shame and guilt, it actually teaches you beautiful lessons.
Yeah, shame is a tricky one, as I know, like I like to try to separate those two just because shame, in my experience of my own life and sort of the work I've done, shame can freeze us.
Yeah.
Guilt, I think, is a useful feeling. Like all feelings, guilt is a very important, wise feeling to lean into. Many of us were not taught that feeling emotional discomfort is okay and wise. We were taught to do everything so we don't have to feel emotional discomfort.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And so we shy very far away from any of it.
Yeah, do. So maybe the kind of the sort of point of all of this is to say that from a neuroscientific place, if we enter motherhood with this belief within ourselves, I have to be right. I have to be in control. I have to know the answer in what I'm doing. We're entering motherhood from a fear-based place.
Yeah.
If I'm entering motherhood from a fear-based place, my brain is already in reactive mode and I'm looking outside of myself for the answers. And if we can notice that and tend to ourselves first and tend to our own limiting beliefs about ourselves or our own background so that we can enter these moments, these uncomfortable moments with our kids, of which there are many, they're beautiful, also uncomfortable moments, from that place of grace and heart versus head, we're actually more likely to connect first and then positively influence, just addressing it from that heartfelt place versus that fear-based place.
It's so hard. I see so many parents who will be like, I really want to do that, but how? And then they'll say, how do I do it when my child's tantruming on the floor, rolling around and having a meltdown? And, it's like that application piece is really hard. And I think finding people like you and me and finding support and community and whatever, and really working on that and changing your mindset. If you really do take the time to work on it, you can get there, but it is not easy.
No, it's not easy. And I think that again is part like if I am someone who needs things to be easy because I don't like being wrong and I don't like the feeling of not knowing the answer, then I'm less likely to be willing to have it not be easy, but to do it anyway. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, that's what I remind myself in my own life is to ask myself that question in the moment. My kid's tantruming, or my teenager is having a teenage moment, or my baby is crying and I don't know why, right? When we want to go into fix it mode, what's the right thing to do? I need to control the situation, is to pause, notice that feeling, and to ask, what if this wasn't a problem?
Yeah, it's not an emergency, I always say. Is this an emergency? Is this a real emergency? But it's probably not.
Probably not. And then before I do anything, before I say the right thing or pull out the right technique or parenting tool, is just to invite myself back into my heart, feel my feet on the floor, take 4 deep breaths.
Yeah. I feel like too, people will say, well, what do I say? What do I do? What's the tool? What's the thing? I feel like if you can get that to that place, to this feeling of groundedness and out of fear, you probably don't even need the thing to say, because it's going to be so organic and you know better than anyone else, your child, your family. And if you could just get your mind straight, the rest just comes.
I couldn't have said it better. I actually think that's the magic.
Yeah, me too.
Of parenting in a way that both brings joy and fulfillment to us and also creates that, quote unquote, secure attachment that our kids, which is stability. And that's it.
Yeah. We don't need the perfect thing to say.
Nope.
You don't need the script. You don't need the trick. You don't need the tip. Those things don't work anyway. That you just need the mind right. You got to get your mind right. I have a really lovely client. She's an attorney. She's a very high functioning attorney, right? And she always pushes me to like give her, but tell me what I need to do. Like give me X, give me Y, give me Z. And then she'll come back and I'll say, okay, but I'm going to give you these things. But the idea is really to change here. Right. And then she'll come back and she's like, well, that didn't work. And I was like, well, that makes sense. That didn't work. Now tell me what else to say. But you said last time, do this. I said, but it's so nuanced. I can't even tell you what to say or do.
So it's funny. I would put myself in that category of your client. I mean, recovering, right? I don't function as I'm practicing all the time, but that for me, one of the hardest things for us really high achieving women is to sit in the not knowing and sit in the discomfort of the not knowing. And I just got off, a call with someone who, quite frankly, when she was raised, her parents would sit over her. And if she didn't get the right math answer, they'd bop her, right? Like it was not safe to not know the answer. Her hardwiring is love and safety comes with knowing. Yeah. Not knowing is not safe. So that's an extreme version of that. But think about that for a moment. So many of us are like, but I need to know because I don't like the feeling of not knowing.
Yeah.
And like, that's where the magic is, isn't it? Which is scary. Well,
we're lucky because we've been doing this for 18, 19 years. And these lovely, sweet, amazing parents are just getting started. So I remember it all very vividly.
Well, and still, I mean, that's why I love having conversations like this, Michelle, because I'm constantly needing to remind myself. And the more I say it out loud, the more I'm like, oh, right. Yes. Thank you for reminding.
This work is for me, not for anyone else. It's actually just to keep me on the straight and narrow.
Oh my gosh. I am right there with you. Totally.
This was really lovely, Kate. Thank you. I'm really glad we got to do it.
I'm hopeful that the conversation is helpful for listeners, because I think we just need to keep hearing these things said over and over in different ways, because sometimes at some point it will move from head to heart.
Yeah.
Have to keep in ourselves in it.
Yeah. I have a different client who's just like, I've already asked this question 10 times. And I'm like, that's okay, because we have to hear it again and again and again and again before we get it. Yeah. So this is good. Where can people find you, Kate?
Yeah, thank you. So you can find me on Instagram. I love having conversations with folks over there. And I will send you a little link for your show notes where people can learn more about me and my work. I just am hopeful for your listeners that they continue to ask themselves these hard but important and valuable questions, and not just in service of them feeling better, because we all know we want to feel better, but in service of our little humans growing into the kind of big humans that we most hope that they will be. It starts with conversations like this.
Yeah. It's for the kids, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's for the world, quite frankly. We need it. World. And so we need to change it in a different way that our brain tells us we need to change it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you everyone for coming and listening. And thank you, Kate, so much. This was so lovely. And we will see you all next time on the Peace of Parenting podcast.
Does connected parenting feel confusing? What do I do in this situation? How do I handle that issue? Let me help you make more sense of it all in my 30-day challenge. We meet for 4 weeks of group coaching, and you get access to all of the Peace in Parenting online materials, my entire Connected Parent Mastermind. Plus, we give you access to our school community. I help you get more connected and jumpstart your parenting in this 30-day challenge. So go to the show notes and sign up, and I'll see you there.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.